Welcome to Noble Theory Podcast. Today, we're talking about the prices of tickets.
Consumer demand is a big part of the equation. It always is, right? Supply and demand, which is a topic we're also going to cover, which has to do with surge pricing, which is obviously the elements that involve with supply and demand. And as tickets sell, they release more tickets, sort of sneaky of the venues. They're doing this thing where they're releasing a block of tickets. They sell. The price goes up as those sell out. Then you release a new block of tickets.
Yeah.
And that block of tickets prices have been thrown out of the equation. Complicated somewhat, but sneaky, at least sneaky, underhanded, I think, by some of the venues. And then another big part of the problem is that a lot of these venues are either controlled by, in bed with, or flat out owned by the ticket purveyors. So
yeah, the sellers of tickets are not necessarily the venues themselves, right? The sellers of the tickets are usually in this country a monopoly called Ticketmaster.
Sure. Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Live Nation bought Ticketmaster, I think, in 2010.
Right. And Live Nation, of course, controls a lot of venues. There's we all remember the famous lawsuit, or many of us remember the famous lawsuit in the 90s where Pearl Jam tried to do a concert tour without the use of Ticketmaster, and or the like of Ticketmaster, whatever it was called at that time. It might have been Ticketmaster. Anyway, they failed. In essence, Ticketmaster was able to. They controlled so many venues that Pearl Jam's attempt at cutting Ticketmaster and their fees out of the equation of a concert-going experience failed, and Pearl Jam reluctantly, I guess, eventually, acquiesced and drank the Kool-Aid because you can't, if you're not playing the game that Live Nation and Ticketmaster require, you're not going to have any fans in the seats.
So I guess Eddie Vedder came down from crawling up the rafters in the venue, and then he came down and said, "Hey, I've got to do this."
He spent too much time in the rafters, I think. There's a whole nother interesting element to this this quagmire that is these tickets and these ticket fees, and it is the service fees and these unannounced fees. And I think recently, politically, nationally, the previous administration had tried to eliminate some of these junk fees. They were talking about hotel junk fees, and they were talking about, car rental fees and these hidden fees that consumers were not really.
You mean like the ones we see when we fly? From the airlines, or from the hotels?
Right.
You're taking a look at all the fees that are embedded in your hotel bill?
And people, some people may or may not realize a lot of that, the airlines are famous for this. A lot of that, they have a base price so that when you do a search at your search engine optimization, the lowest price pops to the top, and you, of course,
but it doesn't include the fee.
Yeah, that's right. And so by the time you're done with the fees, it may in fact not be the lowest price, but it shows up first. And the same is true for tickets.
Well, auto dealers try to something like this, right? When you go in to negotiate for the price of a car, they oftentimes don't negotiate the out-of-door price. I personally only talk about the out-of-door price because they can embed all kinds of things in that price, and then it just jacks it up.
Well, and they also play an emotional game that the car dealers do the same thing with the tickets do is you see yourself driving the car. You see yourself at the concert. You're looking at the seating chart.
Unlike the car dealer where a person can negotiate, can actually sit there and the wear down process, but they can negotiate if they choose. You don't get to negotiate with an airline. You don't get to negotiate with Ticketmaster.
Well, in fact, Jeff, to your point, they have a clock and you must make a decision. In many instances, they'll only hold the window open. How many tickets do you want? Here's where they are. Here's what you're paying. You have 90 seconds or 2 minutes. This will stay open for 2 minutes. And there's a clock ticking down like the speed round on a game show. Yeah. And you've got to decide, I got to make this commitment.
And oftentimes, you don't have the full array or full complement of tickets before you. They're giving you, we just recently bought tickets for the Cincinnati Open tennis tournament that's held in August. And when we bought them, the certain areas that we wanted to sit, you couldn't, it wasn't like they had somebody already bought the ticket and it was unavailable.
They weren't offering it to you.
They just weren't made available.
Right.
And so what these Ticketmaster, I think it was Ticketmaster, had actually sold the tickets. What they do is they create artificial demand or scarcity rather, scarcity
Better.
by restricting the seats that are available at any given time. So you think, well, this is what I've got to buy because this is the only thing I can get right now.
Think if you're Ticketmaster and you're trying to leverage the ticket buying public's habit, they're going to recognize that the seats that you want are they always sell. So what they're going to do, if they're doing it the way you think they would do it, would be let's offer the lower demand tickets first, see if we can get rid of those because the tickets in category A and B we know are going to sell. Let's offer C and D first. And think then what happens? Then C and D, that's all that's offered. That sells out. Now what happens to A and B's prices and demand and interest? It goes up. It actually perpetuates the supply and demand cycle, right? So they're controlling, right?
Well, so by restricting the tickets, they make them more scarce.
Right.
And when things are more scarce, their price goes up, right?
Sure.
And so if you could choose any area in a venue, you're gonna choose the best seats. So if in this case of an outdoor tennis tournament, you don't want to be in the sun. So if there are certain areas at certain times of the day that are exposed to sun, you don't want to sit there. And those prices should...
You make that mistake once.
You make it once, but
Right.
after a while you figure it out.
Yeah.
And so you then look for that area and you avoid that area, go to the opposite area, which is in the shade. That side should command a higher price because there are fewer desirable seats by natural scarcity. The sun determines the scarcity, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
But you should always have access to any seats. When only the sunny seats are made available for sale for 3 or 4 weeks, guess what gets sold?
Mm-hmm.
The sunny seats.
People, most people have that anxiety. I'd rather not go. I just want to get my ticket so I know I'm going.
Yeah.
You're planning a trip.
Yeah.
You got travel arrangements. You got family.
You
got a
have
whole
to plan.
Yeah. And so you're just like, well, let's just get the seats in the sun this time. We'll bring umbrellas. We'll tough through it. And you don't want the anxiety because I try to go to concerts. I go to concerts a lot of times without tickets. And it takes a certain amount of gumption to go to an event where you may not get in.
Yeah.
Right. You get yourself.
But that's why you have a share of a helicopter, right?
Yeah, right.
And you
the
have
rope,
them just drop
rope
you in.
ladder. Yeah. I did ninja just right into the thing. 5 minutes and I'm out if there's no
Like
tickets.
Tom Cruise
Yeah,
at the
right.
Olympics.
Right. I do all my own stunts. Anyway, so the point I'm making though is most people want to have the level of awareness that they're going to go and they're going to get in no matter what. Because I have a friend that won't go unless he has a ticket.
Yeah.
So he'll just buy a ticket anyway. He may buy the nosebleed, whatever, but he's like, well, at least I can get in. I do just the opposite. I think a lot of people don't know. I'm sure a lot of people do. There's rarely is a concert truly sold out. Not Taylor Swift, not U2, not the Rolling Stones, but most concerts, 7, 8, 9 concerts out of 10, it says sold out. If you go and you go to the box office, even before the concert starts, but almost invariably once the concert starts, the venue releases the band's tickets. This is usually 30, 40, 50 tickets. And a lot of times there are other people that are hip to that and they're standing in the line with you. You're standing there with your arms crossed waiting for the box office to open once the show starts because they had a block of tickets set aside for family and friends and road crew people. And they don't show up and they say, okay, release the tickets. And then you buy at face value right there, the band just started and you buy a $140 seat and it's right in the middle or right in front. That online is $500.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And they release tickets. And the other funny thing is buying one ticket. It's another secret. You buy one ticket and your friend buys one ticket because sometimes there's a one-off of a really good seat.
That happens a lot.
And the value of one seat obviously is diminished by the fact that you're there by yourself. Now, those of us that are rogue and lone wolves, concert rogue. No. I'm tortured. I want to go by myself. Leave me alone. No, I'm kidding. But you get my point.
Yeah.
If you
bring your book
to
read.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, you guys keep it down. I'm trying to read. Anyway, point is if you're willing to make those kinds of
trade-offs.
Trade-offs and initial sacrifices in the equation of I'm going to this place, I'm sitting in this spot, and I'm going to see a great show, there's a trade-off and you have to be able to sort of compromise. And
so when I was in D.C., my wife and I were living in D.C. This is before we had our first child. We were going to a concert and we didn't have tickets. We were doing what you were talking about. We just kind of showed up. So normally, I find, a normal looking couple, that's trying to sell a ticket. They had 2 extra. Their friends didn't show up.
this was the Spandau Ballet concert.
It was the Spandau
I just wanted to make sure of the
It,
audience.
it was the it was the Boy George
Oh, Boy
concert.
George. Okay,
Boy
cool.
George
Yeah.
with opening by
Good,
Spandau Ballet.
Abella. Okay. You just
So,
wanna
so
make
I
sure.
think it was Dave Matthews actually.
Okay.
So we were just trying to. We'd seen him a bunch of times, early 2000s, even 90s. So it wasn't like we were desperate to see at this point. So we couldn't find anybody. We found some scalpers. These are
Sure.
and at this point it was maybe 20, 30 minutes into the concert, and I'm like, well, what's your price? It was way too high, and I said, no, that's too high of a price. Well, how much are you willing to pay? And let's just say they wanted $100 a ticket, and I said, oh, I'll give you $50 a ticket. And they're like, oh, no way. So I said, okay. I watched these guys, and they tried to sell our tickets to other people. They couldn't sell them. This is another 15 minutes transpires, 20 minutes. I go up to them and say again, are you willing to take the $50? No, I'm not. So at that point, I realized these guys didn't have legitimate tickets. These were fakes. And that's why they have no cost in it. If they had cost in that ticket, if they'd paid something for that ticket,
The price is dropping
the
by the
price
minute.
is dropping by the minute.
Yeah.
And so they were not going to be able to sell those tickets and get their money out. But when the ticket has no cost to them,
Yeah.
they can sit there and wait for $100 for all night.
You're bringing up a huge reason that people use Ticketmaster, which is they don't want to use scalpers. It's a stranger.
Yeah.
It's nighttime. There's cash involved. It's an unsettling situation for the vast majority of the population. People don't enjoy that
People
moment.
get ripped off all the time.
Yeah,
You
sure.
just talk to people and they'll tell you.
But even if they don't get ripped off, they just to stand there and to sort of be at the whim and mercy of a stranger who's got a ticket that you want, and it just that it's an uncomfortable negotiation. So that's a reason people use Ticketmaster, right? Now, the scalpers are sort of now wearing ties and sitting in offices, right? Now the scalpers are these sophisticated, venture capitalist companies, StubHub and these companies that have now the secondary ticket market has exploded and become a viable.
But the problem, and we'll get into this in a few minutes, but that sort of organic, natural way of buying and selling tickets to scalpers. Sometimes things work out just fine, right?
Sure. Most
My
of
wife
the
and
time.
I were living in Buffalo, New York, and there was an Elvis Costello concert. We like Elvis Costello. We went to the concert. We had tickets. I don't recall what they were, but they weren't very expensive, $25, $27 a piece. This is in the kind of the 2008-ish range.
Okay.
Maybe they were $35, but it looked like it was going to start raining. And I could see that from across the venue, we could stand near the University of Buffalo. They had a building there, and you could stand kind of under a covered area and look into the concert area. So Jamie, my wife and I sold our tickets. There was a nice couple. They came up to us. We're trying to sell it. No problem. We exchanged. I sold it for face value. We go over then to this area on the University of Buffalo's campus and watch the concert while everybody else got rained on. We were bone dry.
Interesting. And had a good view of the
And
venue.
had a decent view. It wasn't like being in the concert
Sure.
itself. But there are things that happen, and it makes sense to sell your ticket.
Sure. Interesting. Which reminds me, we should just rip through a couple of some of the more interesting statistics. The notes in front of me say top artists for 2024. I think it's important. That's a really sort of it's a fluid equation when you talk about these top artists. Who sold the most tickets? If you have a concert venue that has 10,000 seats and the seats are $1,000 each, that's different than if you have 50,000 seats and the seats are $50 each, for example. And so there's a lot of metrics that go into the equation to determine what the highest selling artist is. And it may not be what are the entry level ticket prices, what are the top level ticket prices. By the way, before we started this podcast today, Jeff, I went on Live Nation's homepage, and on the opening homepage was a concert at the Sphere, and the cheapest tickets, you couldn't buy one ticket, you had to buy a minimum of two, and it was $1,575 for two tickets. And they had a little.
So this isn't secondary sales.
No, this is right. This is the regular price on the website, and who knows what fees go on top of that. But they had one of those little sliding scales, and it was pinned at the lowest. So the opening price was $1,575 for two tickets.
Yeah.
Couldn't buy one. It was crazy, right? So let's talk about ticket prices for a minute. So the top artists of 24. Are there some of the bands you'd think? Before I looked at the list, I was asking myself, I wonder if I can get. So I had U2 on the list. They're on the list. They're number 10. The Eagles on the list, Rolling Stones on the list. Surprisingly, one of the things I saw, the most profitable concert tour of all of 2024, most people would get it wrong, not Taylor Swift, which seems odd. It may be these anomalies of what the factors were to determine the
When you
equation.
say profitable,
That's what I mean. They said the top grossing concert tour. So it may mean they only did 10 dates and they made the most money. If Taylor Swift did 20 dates, she made less per date, so she wouldn't be the top.
so it is on a per unit.
It might be. I don't know. I'm
per
giving you
unit
an
basis.
example. But the number one was Coldplay, which is pretty odd. You would think that's one of the. I saw Taylor Swift as the number one in 24, which makes sense here. That tour with the $2 billion and the whole thing we've talked about in other podcasts about the best of 24, the most surprising things of 24. And Taylor Swift's tour was on there for how enormous the profits were and how big the ticket sales were.
So, but her tickets, she did not benefit from the secondary sales that took place. So most of the crazy prices for the Taylor Swift tickets, those prices were from the secondary market. So she had a lottery system. And so our family, we entered it and we got it. We won the opportunity, the right to buy tickets. So we bought
the privilege
to buy tickets. It was a right of first refusal. So we bought 4 tickets, and I think they were a little under $150 each. This was at the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. It was in November, and so she would have made the $150 times 4, right? $600 for us. But my wife's brother, who had also entered into the lottery. Now we had like 5 family members also enter the lottery for us.
as many people did.
Should they win, then we would buy the tickets and pay them. But Jamie's brother also we asked him to do it. He did it, and he also won the right to buy the tickets, or not really won the right, but was given the right of first refusal. So he bought tickets for his family. Something came up and he couldn't go at the last minute. He was able to sell those tickets that we paid $150 per ticket. He bought 4 of them as well for $150 each. He sold them for almost $3,000 a ticket in the secondary market.
Crazy.
So somebody bought those tickets, right?
Right.
People were willing to buy that. Now, I have no problem with a person having the voluntary transaction, arm's length voluntary transaction. I want to see X. I'll pay whatever to see X. That's fine. I have no problem with that.
X is a great band from California.
What I
by the way.
don't
know if you know that, there's a
think
band.
is very beneficial to society or to individuals or to companies that are trying to compete in this market is to have a monopoly dominating the transaction itself.
Well, you're controlling the price.
When you control the price, well, in this case, Taylor Swift controlled the price. She
lost control of the price.
But she lost the control of the secondary market.
Right.
Right. So Bruce Springsteen recently said that he's getting into this. He's not gonna lose that value, and so he's selling tickets for $1,500 to his concert.
It's funny you bring up.
So if if somebody wants to see Bruce, I don't personally think any concert is worth $1,500. It's just too expensive to pay that much money for a ticket for me. But that's my own personal judgment. Somebody else may be willing to, and that's fine.
Well, if you have the means.
If you have the means.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift was trying to allow families to see her concert. I would not have seen that concert if I had to pay $1,500 or $3,000 a ticket to do it. It was just not worth it. So I was able to see her, and so she made sure that her fans, not that I'm a fan base, my daughter is really the one driving that choice, but I had a good time. It was a good concert. It was a terrific concert. In fact, the whole experience was lovely. We stayed in a hotel right across from Lucas Oil. They had it was an old train station, and they had cars that were turned into hotel rooms. We could literally walk across the street and be there. The whole thing worked out terrific.
Wow. It seems like that would have been sold out months in advance.
It was. But we bought, we had our tickets way in advance.
I'm saying the hotels, like right across from the stadium.
Bought, the moment we got the tickets, we bought the hotel.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
It would have been sold out.
You brought up Bruce Springsteen, and I've got one of the notes on here. It says, that, fans these days are, are nostalgic for cheaper concert tickets, and one of the artists whose concert tickets have increased exponentially throughout his career is Springsteen. And they have these examples. In 1976, you could see Springsteen live for $8. $8 in 1976. Adjusted for inflation, that's $44. In 1988, so 1976 to 1988, $8.76. In 1988, the tickets were $22.50. Okay. Now in 2024, and this is last year, it's probably gone up another 10 or 20%. The average ticket price for a Springsteen concert, average ticket price, $150.70.
Yeah.
So it's $150 just to go see the average ticket price. If you got a family and you want to go out, by the time you park, we all know this. You have a drink, you buy a T-shirt.
Oh, you're going to spend thousands if you're really going to have to stay somewhere. I mean, if it's just driving there from the city or something, you're probably fine. But
it's completely crazy. And part of this, a big part of this equation, you were just mentioning about the secondary ticket. Part of that equation is this surge pricing, and the surge pricing is really pretty interesting. I think a lot of people may or may not know surge pricing is determined by the artist, and the artist set, in essence, they toggle a switch on with Ticketmaster to have surge pricing take place. For surge pricing to actually happen, and I think Taylor Swift had surge pricing engaged. Now, some people have said that surge pricing is also manipulated, as we were talking a minute ago, by they put a block of tickets up for sale. And
that's creating the artificial scarcity.
That's right. That demand, and in some instances, artists have then said, "Listen, you're gouging." They go online for their own concert. They see how expensive the tickets are, and then they call Ticketmaster and say, "Turn off surge pricing," and the prices drop.
Yeah,
noticeably drop because of the surge pricing. Because obviously, again, the venue is throttling the release of tickets and controlling a pool of tickets one at a time. It's pretty underhanded. Which a little bit leads to the Ticketmaster antitrust lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, but the problem with having a monopoly, and it doesn't matter what area a monopoly exists, when a monopoly can use its leverage to then create secondary restrictions, barriers, prevent other venues from doing things. That's when a monopoly by itself is not an illegal organizational structure. You find yourself in a monopoly because you've got a dominant product that everybody wants to have. But when you use your monopoly power, even if it was created legitimately, when you use that monopoly power then to restrict
manipulate, yeah,
and restricting trade or restricting other businesses from entering the market, that's when it becomes illegal. And so what appears that Ticketmaster is doing, and I mean, this is something that, again, I think technology is eroding the monopoly itself, possibly, as technology tends to do, right? Technology gets around a monopoly because of the inducement for greater profits and greater access to consumers. The technology exists now such that you don't even need a Ticketmaster. Every venue in this country could throw up a website with a payment processor and sell tickets directly.
And by the way, for a while, Ticketmaster, you remember you printed your own tickets. You still do that. On your own home printer. Right.
But you have to buy.
You pay for that though. It's called the convenience ticket fee.
Almost all tickets are sold through Ticketmaster now. It doesn't matter. You could be going to a sports game, a tournament or something, and the tickets are sold through Ticketmaster. So it doesn't really matter the venue anymore. What I'm saying is that one way of getting around this monopoly, if the federal government does not pursue an antitrust or is not successful in pursuing an antitrust a suit against them, finding them violation of antitrust, that's up to a court to determine, a federal court. But businesses can set up. So if you had a big venue, 100,000 person stadium, you could set up your own ticketing system there with its own payment processor, and you could sell tickets directly to customers. And then you avoid Ticketmaster altogether.
Well, according to the antitrust lawsuit, in that is some information that says that according to Ticketmaster's internal documents, Ticketmaster controls 70 to 80% of all ticket sales.
Right.
Now, it's not a monopoly, but boy,
it would be a monopoly. I mean,
it is.
That's
100%.
You don't need 100% for a monopoly. Right. Nothing like it, actually. So 70%, how they're probably doing it, and I suspect during discovery, when you receive the documents or vet the documents, you'll see that there'll be emails and correspondence and so forth with venues, and you'll see pressure being applied to that venue to not have any ticket sales outside of the Ticketmaster system.
Sure.
That's when the monopoly becomes violative of antitrust law.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see venues that try to say,
We'll drop you if you don't, stop selling your own tickets.
and the sympathetic venues, a lot of the smaller venues, the one-off little mom and pop venues, will say on their website, come down, our box office is open, and we just pay face value.
Yeah. But see, they don't even work with Ticketmaster
That's
ever.
right.
It's the venues that want to work with Ticketmaster in some context and
10,000 seats,
by themselves,
20,000 seats.
and by themselves in other contexts. Ticketmaster will say, you have to sell exclusively to us. And I suspect we're going to see this in the discovery documents. You have to sell all your seats, for the year through us, not through your own private secondary sales.
Well, and then it gets real messy when Ticketmaster is in bed with the bands and the management companies,
Yeah.
and then say, if you want U2 to play at Nissan Stadium, you have to use Ticketmaster. Oh, we don't want to use Ticketmaster. Well, then U2's not going to play, and everybody loses. So I think the big, one of the more egregious elements of the whole Ticketmaster business model is all these fees, the service fees. This is what makes everybody crazy. Service fees, convenience fees, customer fees. And so there's I read something that was in the LA Times that said that the service fee is intentionally kept separate from the list price for two reasons. That's interesting, right? So you see, I'm going to go see Elvis Costello for $100. Here's my $100. Here's my date. Here's my seat. Check out, and all of a sudden the tickets, it's $126.80. And you're like, wait a minute, I just was paying $100. My seat's $100. I just saw it. It's right there, and it's $100. Now it's $126. Why is it $26 more dollars? Well, they have all these service fees and tack all these things on. And the reason they do this, it's kept separate from the list price, according to the LA Times, for two reasons. One is to make the base price of the ticket appear more affordable. Logical, perhaps underhanded, but simple salesmanship, trying to, advertise a low price, get people in the door. Okay, so to make the ticket appear more affordable. The other is to create the impression that only Ticketmaster pockets the fee. So this is where it gets a little sneaky. It says here, in other words, Ticketmaster is effectively paid to be the punching bag for the consumer's frustration with opaque add-on fees. So think about that for a second. Some of these fees make their way back to the venue and back to the artists, but that's not publicized. That's not common everyday information. It looks like it's all Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster says you want to see Elvis Costello, it's $100. Your ticket's $126. We're Ticketmaster, and we're keeping 26.
So the artist doesn't want to look like a bad guy,
right?
But so in other words, they'd like to get $200 a ticket, but they're willing to sell the ticket for $135, but they want $35 or $40 more in fees.
Now you're closing that window from the
to
100
get to the 200, and it looks like the Ticketmaster is the bad guy.
Yeah, using such subterfuge, this article goes on to say, to extract additional revenue from fans without arousing direct backlash towards themselves being the artists, has become increasingly important for the artists.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? The last thing you want to think is like, why are you doing this to your fans?
Yeah.
If you go on Live Nation right now, besides that thing I talked about earlier with the Sphere, they have $30 concerts across the country. So they're feeling the heat. Besides the antitrust lawsuit, everyone's complaining about the price of tickets, and Live Nation's like, well, why don't you go on our website? Because they had about 30 concerts, $30 for a ticket, $30.
But ultimately how you even sort out a monopoly, you stop buying the products.
Sure.
And so that means that if you have to go a year without going to a concert, that's okay, right?
Right.
Funflation can only stop when consumers decide.
But that takes discipline.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But a concert is one of the things we need the least in the world, probably.
Right.
Right? I love music. I'm a big fan of music. Big fan of live music and live entertainment. I like seeing theater. I like seeing classical music. I like doing all kinds of things, sporting events.
Sure.
But the cost of it can become oppressive, right? And it becomes a burden then, rather than something like it's enjoyable entertainment.
Sure. By the way, interesting little addendums to some of this. Largest concert ever was Madonna who's now 66 and hails from my hometown of Detroit. In May of 24, at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, estimated 1.6 million people, one concert, one night, had 18 sound towers along the beach. There's a pretty crazy cool picture on the internet, if it's real, of these people that came out. Now, the interesting thing is the concert
Now, was it really Madonna or was it AI Madonna?
yeah, right. At 66, there's at least some AI involved. I think what was interesting, slightly interesting, is that the concert itself for 1.6 million people was free.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, that's great.
now imagine though what it cost for a beach chair and parking and a
Yeah.
water and
All the other things you need.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to have.
$1,200.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you're done.
But you know, one of the best places to see a concert is in a college town,
Sure.
because the university will usually have some kind of facility where it's large enough to accommodate. My wife and I, saw Dave Matthews at the University of Illinois at their stadium, and it was a fantastic concert. It was cheap. I don't remember how much it was. This was in the mid '90s, late '90s. It was super cheap though, maybe $25. We saw Elton John at another university at its stadium. Again, this is a similar time. So these are cheap tickets. Right now,
you can't do that today, though.
well, Elton John is done touring, but
Right.
recently he was touring, and his tickets were extremely expensive.
Yeah.
I guess at the time, though, there wasn't that much demand for Elton John. This was, again, the '90s. I think he had, sort of lost favor. But as he's aged and people in the demographic who really liked Elton John have gotten older people tend to have more disposable income.
Sure.
And so that's one of the reasons why you're seeing bands like the Eagles or bands
Rolling Stones.
like Rolling Stones,
U2.
Elton John. People have more disposable income and they're able to spend it, and they want to sort of reflect back, glory days, to use a famous Bruce Springsteen song.
Sure, sure.
So they want to relive the glory days, and they pay $1,500 to go see one of these bands that they once saw when they were young.
Well, the other thing too is back to the fundamentals of supply and demand. The demand is way up. Live Nation reported 151 million people attended one of its shows in 2024. Listen to this, a 50% increase in concert attendance compared to just 2019. So think in 5 years, concert attendance, this is what's driving the high prices. People are willing to pay.
Yeah.
And so
It's always a willingness to pay.
right, it is the sort of
So I mean,
back to the free market.
there's an economic concept of elasticity, and so things that are elastic, people have more sensitivity to high prices or to rising prices. You're inelastic, things you have less sensitivity to price changes. So medicine, for instance, is inelastic. Most people have to pay whatever they have to pay for their diabetes medication, right?
Well, no, sorry, go ahead.
But for a vacation, they are not willing to pay a 30% or 50% increase in price, right? So this is an entertainment industry, and this is an elastic band of price elasticity of demand. And so you will see some, even when demand is intense, you will see some people falling out and fewer people paying the higher prices once they get high enough.
Well, another factor at play here is that if you think back to the business model of the music industry in the 90s, 80s, 70s, vinyl records was a huge part of an artist's income stream, right? Now Spotify pays a fraction, tiny fraction of a penny, 0.000 whatever per spin.
Yeah.
Vinyl's coming back, but not to the same.
Yeah, but Scott, you got to be careful about that because that large number and the fraction of a penny, they made a lot of money on radio. When radio was more prevalent, terrestrial radio, and so they may see, well, I got paid.
Well, they get a performance fee. They get a performance royalty now.
They still do on the radio,
Yeah.
but say it's $1, what appears to them to be $1 per performance. But they don't see how many people actually listened to that song, because in a major city, for instance, there may be 100,000 people or 150,000 people that listen to the play of one song on the radio, on a radio station, right?
Plays once. Yeah.
Plays once. But 150,000 people listen to it. Spotify knows 150,000 people listen to this
By hit and play.
right. And so if you were to take that dollar and divide it by 100,000, you'd have a fraction of a penny as well.
Sure. That makes sense. But the original point I was making is that that the artists are charging more for these concerts because it's a bigger part of their, and now it's become a bigger part of their model, their income, right? They charge a ton to tour because they need more of that tour dollar. They used to tour and break even or make a few bucks to sell the records, right? And that was the big idea behind touring, was to promote a record,
Right.
and then sell the record. And the artist got the money from the record, theoretically.
You see, though,
Now they're getting the money from ticket sales.
Correct, but there is a huge cost in a modern concert, and so when I talk about seeing Dave Matthews, it was Dave Matthews and his bandmates strumming guitars and playing keyboards and playing brass. And that's it. Like there wasn't much on the set besides the men and their instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Even Elton John, he had his costumes, but he wasn't really. Today, in contrast, Taylor Swift has very elaborate sets. These are very expensive sets, and in order to do the tour, they have to have several sets of the sets. One that's,
but she doesn't have to do that. That's a choice. That's an artistic choice.
It's a choice, but the price of the concert is going to be commensurate with the cost. Nobody's saying anything about choice in that sense. She is making a choice to have this elaborate concert. It's appealing to people, and people are willing to pay to see it. Ed Sheeran, we saw last year at the Nissan Stadium here in Nashville. And his concert is elaborate as well. It was not that expensive. It was I think we paid $50. A friend of ours who went with us, they paid, I think, $110. They bought them early, and we bought them near.
There's the people that want to have the ticket in their pocket,
near to the date of the concert.
You were willing to roll the dice,
yeah. And so our families all went, and we saw the concert, and it was a very good concert. But we paid $53. Now the set was nothing like Taylor Swift sets.
Yeah. Taylor Swift's got a pool, and
no, but she's got several. She's got the one set that's in at the stadium that you're attending, but then they've got another set. All the sets, there are like 10 different sets in a concert, and they're on the way to the next venue,
of course,
to set up.
Sure.
Then the one that you attended gets dismantled, and they go to the next one.
Can you imagine the logistics of the trucks?
The logistics and the cost. This is a very expensive operation. So it's fine. You need to generate a lot of revenue when you're spending a lot of money. And so my point is merely this: when a concert is a more elaborate concert, the prices are going to be more expensive.
Sure.
Because the cost is a lot more expensive.
Sure. Choose to go or choose not to go.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Bruce Springsteen is not doing a concert like Taylor Swift.
His jeans have holes in them. He doesn't even repair his jeans before he goes out.
He hasn't even got new jeans.
I don't even get it.
So his cost is relatively low. He's just trying to extract as much money out of his fans.
Yeah. So in conclusion, Ticketmaster, this is one of those funny things where, you do find an organization that there's a lot of resentment, a lot of public resentment. I think Ticketmaster is one of the most hated companies. I saw a joke where they said, well,
it's the front face.
Yeah, forward facing of, it's the poster of, frustration, consumer frustration, right? There's other organizations and companies that are not far behind, but at the end of the day, they have taken a business model and they have done it really well, and they've dialed it in, and what they've really done is eliminate the competition.
Again, I suspect that there are ways now. It's easy to set up a website, and it's easy to set up a payment system, and so
it's deeper than that, though, Jeff, because they won't let you band play there. They're closing you out with the tickets. They're closing you out in the venues.
I suspect that behind the ugly truth, the bands are involved.
Well, this is what I was saying, where the money makes its way back.
In restricting, right? So if the band doesn't want to come play in your venue because you're not a Ticketmaster venue, right? Mm-hmm. And if there's some agreement in restraint of trade,
we need names. Don't we need names of bands?
But if there's an agreement in restraint of trade that way, well, then that is going to violate antitrust laws.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Sherman antitrust law. Look it up. And so we need to have an environment where people can choose to buy tickets directly from the venue or through Ticketmaster, whomever they trust to sell the tickets to them.
Sure. Well, this is that in conclusion.
And by the way, I in addition, I want to make this final point because this is some of it, right? Some of the higher costs we're seeing. I was mentioning the the nature of the more involved sets now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the aspects. The other aspect is that we also have a fair bit of inflation, right, over time. And so from 1985 to today, 2025, it's a factor of 3, right? So if you paid $25 for a concert in 85, then that would be about 75 today in today's dollars. And so if the,
But what
if
are the
the price
fees? No.
if the price is a lot more than that, well, now if there's not some other secondary influence like a complicated involved set, extra people attending, dancers, dance squads, fireworks, whatever. If there's not something else to add to
Bruce
the
Springsteen, what you mean?
concert,
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah.
just extracting money from the consumer.
Yeah. And still, people still seem to be willing to pay it.
All right. Well, so that was terrific.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah,
See you next
thank
time,
you.
buddy.